All right, so we're in chapter 10, central nervous system, and that we should know includes the brain and the spinal cord. So all these, looks like there's a heart in there. So all these nerves branching off the spinal cord, that's part of the peripheral nervous system. So we're just going with the brain and spinal cord for this one. So I erased most of the cranial nerves. You can see a little piece of one still here. I left the optic nerve and the olfactory nerves, but I deleted most of them just so you can get a better look. All right, so today we're going to go over what's called the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. Right now, it's being covered with this white uh, tissue that we should probably know what that is. That's the outermost layer of the meninges that serves to protect the brain. So we're going to have to remove that first. So this is the dura mater. It's very thick and it's strong. When you do the sheep dissection, I mean, if you try to tear it with your hands, it's too tough. I mean, it's almost like leather. All right, so I'm going to hide the dura mater. Boom. All right, so we're exposing the cerebrum below. We'll get it off on this side. Dura mater. Hide it. Let's hide it here in the temporal lobe, covering the cerebellum. All right, let's get it out of here. What's called the longitudinal fissure. Hide it and get it out of here and out of there. All right, so I think we got it all off. Is there any? Let's see. Nope. Okay. All right, so we got it all off. So, and that'll happen in real life too. Now, if you come real close, you can see how it's shiny, like right here and right there. It almost looks wet. Well, that's actually the pia mater. And when you do the sheep dissection, you'll see that the sheep brain, once you get the dura mater off, it's going to look real shiny because that's the pia mater. Remember, that's the most deep part of the meninges that protects the brain. Remember, it was dura mater on the outside. You have the arachnoid matter in the middle. Remember the subarachnoid space? That's what holds the CSF. And then you have the pia mater that's directly like stuck onto the brain, directly adhered to the brain. All right, so here's the cerebrum. You can see it looks kind of wrinkly. So it's got low points, got like valleys, and it's got hills. And we're going to go over what these little hills and valleys. So some valleys are shallow, like these right here. These are shallow. This one right here is much deeper, and then there's one on the very top, the dorsal surface of the brain right here that separates the left and the right hemisphere. A very deep groove right here. All right, so we're going to start with the deep ones. Their names first. All right, so we'll go over two specific ones. All right, so you're going to want to mark this down on your brain diagram. The first one is right here. This is going to become the boundary of the temporal lobe from the parietal and the frontal lobes. So go ahead and mark down that one on your brain diagram. I have to get rid of it now because it won't let me type unless I get rid of it. Might not let me type anyways. Oh, I gotta get rid of my pen. Get rid of that. All right, boom, boom. All right, here we go. A little bigger. All right, so that one I showed you right here, that's called the lateral fissure. Lateral fissure. So any deep grooves, those are called fissures. Now the guy that I show on the top, the one that separates the right hemisphere from the left hemisphere, that's called the longitudinal fissure. So mark that one on your brain diagram, the one on the very top. Let's see if it'll let me turn it. Yes, it will. All right, so there's the longitudinal fissure, and here's your lateral fissure. This one's also called the Sylvian fissure. Capital Sylvian. Sylvian. All right, so now we're gonna go to the shallow grooves. And there's only one that you're gonna need to know. And it's this guy right here. And it's going to be the boundary between the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe. And this one goes just like this. You're going to want to write this, mark this on your little brain picture. It's right there. Mark that. I got to undo it so I can type, get rid of my pen. All right. So that one right there that I just showed you is called the central sulcus. Sulcus. So a shallow groove is a sulcus. A deep groove is a fissure. So that's the central sulcus right there. Sulci would be for plural. All right, so now we know what the little valleys, deep valleys, fissures, shallow valleys, sulcus. How about the hills? What are the hills called? All right, so there's gonna be two. So remember, this was the central sulcus. So just in front of the central sulcus, these are called a gyrus. So the hills are called a gyrus, and this guy's got his own name. Let's see if it's gonna work. Yes, precentral gyrus, and it says left because this is the left cerebral hemisphere. So it's located, it's the little heel that's located just anterior or in front of the central sulcus. All right, so this is the precentral gyrus. Let's see if it's going to let me type that. But more importantly, so it's the precentral gyrus. All right, I'll see if I can fit it. Precentral gyrus. But more importantly, the precentral gyrus is the location of what's called the primary motor cortex, or the primary motor area. So whenever you move your arms, legs, hands, mouth, whatever, that movement started somewhere in this area. And this is the left cerebral hemisphere. So this motor area right here is going to cause movement in the right side of your body, because the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. The right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. All right, so that is the primary motor cortex right here. It's on the precentral gyrus. There's going to be another one that's right back here. It's just behind the central sulcus. And let's see if it's going to do it for me. And there it is. The post-central gyrus. Post-central gyrus. All right, so make sure you're marking these on your little brain diagram. You got the post. Oh, that's going to let me type. Post central gyrus. Gyrus, those are the bumps. But more importantly, the post central gyrus is the spot for the primary this is not going to fit, somatosensory cortex. Primary somatosensory cortex. So this area of the brain. So if you feel some sort of sensation, I don't know, a mosquito bites you on the arm or the face or a leg, you're going to feel that sensory information is going to arrive here. The primary somatosensory cortex. This is where you feel all the different, sensations in your body. It ends up in this part of the brain. All right, so now we're going to go over the different lobes of the brain. All right, so give me 1 second. All right, so now the different lobes of the brain. So you're going to want to mark these on your brain diagram. All right, we'll start with the frontal lobe. Its posterior boundary is the central sulcus. I've only got this pink color. I can't change my colors because this thing's in my way. But on your diagram, you're going to want to change colors. So, put the frontal lobe, make it blue or whatever you want, and then do different colors for the other ones. All right, so this is the frontal lobe. This is where your personality is stored. This is where, if you're planning something like, hey, you're planning to run or jog or walk or whatever, this is where that plan is going to originate up here. Also, controlling your impulses. So young people, their frontal lobe isn't fully developed. So like a little kid, if he wants a piece of candy, he might start crying and throwing a tantrum. Where an adult would be like, all right, I want candy, but I'll get some candy later. They can control their impulses. So memory, your higher order thinking, personality, all right here in the frontal lobe. All right, then we're going to go to the parietal lobe. It's going to start right here again at the central sulcus. And this is the lobe of the brain that's mainly sensory. So this is where you feel things in your body. You also interpret if somebody's talking to you. Part of the parietal lobe helps you to understand what they're saying. So the parietal lobe is basically the back top half of the brain. So right about like that, that's your parietal lobe. Sensory information, some taste, and also be able to comprehend what somebody, the speech that you're hearing. So that's the parietal lobe, mostly just sensory. All right, now we'll do the temporal lobe. This is going to be auditory. So you probably have your primary auditory cortex. This is going to be your temporal lobe. Taste, that's called the gustatory uh, cortex. And that's going to be right here, the lateral fissure. And then you go back this way. And it goes to about here, roughly there. All right, so there's your temporal lobe. So this is, once again, auditory cortex, hearing, taste, and also some comprehension of speech. And the last one's gonna be in the very back. It's gonna be back here. This is the occipital lobe. Occipital lobe, and that contains your primary visual cortex. So information that comes in the eyes goes to the optic nerve, and it'll eventually arrive back here in your occipital lobe where the primary visual cortex is located. And on your drawing, if you did the frontal lobe, let's say you did it blue, like light blue, turn this precentral gyrus, the primary motor area, color that like a darker blue. And then same thing with this parietal lobe. If you, let's say you colored it, I don't know, red, make the whole thing light red. And then the primary somatosensory cortex right here, make that like a darker red. So it stands out. So, you got your primary motor, primary somatosensory. And then do your parietal and occipital lobe a third and fourth different color. I'm going to show you a couple other areas. Let me type it. Let me get rid of this pen. The first one I'm going to go over is it's called Broca's area. Broca's area. Nope, not Brock's. Broca's area. And that's uh, connected with what's called Broca's aphasia. And Broca's area is going to be, and you're going to want to write this on your brain diagram. So be right in here, right around there. It's in the frontal lobe. Broca's area. And scientists and doctors, for the most part, throughout history, the way they learn about what parts of the brain actually do, they kind of have to wait for a patient to come in that has damage in a specific region. And it's usually through, an accident or a stroke. Usually those are your two biggest causes of brain damage. But what Broca found was when people came in with damage to this specific area, they got what he called Broca's aphasia. And that means these people can understand what you're telling them. They totally understand it, but they cannot produce their own speech. So when you're talking to them, they understand what you're saying. They just have trouble combining words together to form sentences. So that's Broca's aphasia and Broca's area. Let me go and delete it. I think it's gonna. All right. So the next one is gonna be area left, but that's no big deal. I get rid of the pen. The next one's gonna be Wernicke's. Not Wernicke's, but Wernicke's area. And this is going to lead to what's called Wernicke's aphasia. And Wernicke's area is it's kind of in the border of the parietal and the temporal. It's right in here. This is going to be Wernicke's area. And this leads to Wernicke's aphasia. So people that have damage in this region, these guys are able to talk no problem. So they can put sentences together perfectly. They can talk to you. But when you talk to them, they don't know what you're talking about. So these people have trouble with language comprehension. They're fine producing with language production, bad at language comprehension. So that's going to be Wernicke's area. All right, a couple more things I'm going to show you real quick. All right, let's see if I can get the right view. All right, there we go. So you see a couple cranial nerves. It's the olfactory bulb and the olfactory nerve right here. So that's scent. So you can see these little nerve endings go into each nostril for you to be able to smell things. And then you can see right here the optic nerve. If I can get it in the right spot. Oh, yeah, that's good enough. It keeps going that way. All right, optic nerve. There we go. All right. So information from the eye comes in, gets in the eye, and then it goes down the optic nerve, and it comes to this X right here. This X is called the optic chiasm. Optic chiasm. So that's where, for viewing, you have what's called your medial field of view, and you have your lateral field of view. So you can see things. This is your left eye. So you can see things off to the side. That's your lateral field of view, and you can see things kind of into the middle. That's your medial. Well, information that you see from your lateral field of view comes into the eye, down the optic nerve, and this one's going to cross over. So it goes from your left eye, it's going to cross over in the chiasm and actually go to the right occipital lobe in your right cerebral hemisphere. So it crosses over. That's called contralateral when it crosses over. But from the same eye, if you see something from your medial field of view, goes in the eye, down that information, that one stays what's called ipsilateral. It does not cross over. It's going to stay in the left cerebral hemisphere. So this optic chiasm here is where Sensory information sometimes can cross over and go to the opposite side, or sometimes it actually stays on the same side, ipsilateral versus contralateral. All right, and one other thing I wanted to show you real fast. See if I can get it. It's going to be tough. I got to get it way down. Let's go out, down, this way. All right, let's go ahead and remove part of the cerebrum or half of the cerebrum. Hide it. All right, so you can see there's a lot of structures that we're going to be going over later on. I just wanted to show you this real quick. This structure right here is what allows the left hemisphere, cerebral hemisphere, to talk to or communicate with the right cerebral hemisphere. And this is called the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. So this serves as the bridge between the left and the right cerebral hemispheres. All right, so that's the cerebrum. We'll go over some more stuff, more brain structures next time.